everybody. Here we are at the Free Her Conference in Montgomery, Alabama, 2019. Most powerful project dealing with these women down here. You have never seen this strength before in your life, I guarantee you. So 2020, don't miss it. You really should be here. But there are some things we need to talk about. One of the things about home monitors, about this new slavery move, where you still tied to the prison system by way of home monitoring. So today, we got a young man that's going to explain all of that to you.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you for calling me a young man.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So tell us about this home monitoring system and how it's working and what we can do to help change it.
Well, see, a lot of people are calling home monitoring or electronic monitoring an alternative to incarceration, but it's not really. It's an alternative form of incarceration because they're shifting people out of jails, shifting people who are on parole and locking them in their house. So their house becomes like a jail cell. And on top of that, the companies are getting into the game and they're charging people daily user fees of up to $35 a day to be on a monitor. And so we see a new form of incarceration developing where people in the communities, and it's mainly black and brown communities, the communities that have been targeted by mass incarceration are now increasingly being hit by electronic monitoring. And when you're on a monitor, you have to get permission from your parole officer, your probation officer, just to leave the house. If you want to go to work, if you want to go practice your religion, if you want to participate in family activities, you got to get permission. So you're under the thumb of this authority, and it becomes very difficult to carry on with your life.
So you're really under arrest in your own home.
That's right, and it becomes a burden to your family or to your loved ones. And I think in particular, given where we are, we're at a gathering that's talking about the particular oppression of women in the context of mass incarceration. We're talking about a situation whereby even when a man is put on an electronic monitor and they're stuck in the house, it usually means more work for a woman to look after them, whether it's their mother, their grandmother, their partner, their sister. The burden, the financial burden falls on them. A lot of times they can't get out of the house to go to work or to seek work, so that their food and everything's got to be paid for by a family member. And then there's an emotional burden of having somebody who may have been locked up for a while and now they're locked in their house. And then there's all that nervous energy, all that tension building up, and they can't even take a walk around the block to blow off some steam. So the people in the house have to bear the burden of trying to help this person through the transition.
Yeah. So it's a very difficult transition. I'm sure everybody here now would understand what the effect it had, just not on that individual, but the family as well. So when we talk about this home monitor, what can we do possibly to move some agendas around so we can change that agenda? What can we do? Because we know economically it's financing somebody's company. Some company is involved and these big companies get involved. It's hard to get them out once they taste that money. So what can we do?
I think there's a number of things. I really believe that the starting point for this is to get people's stories out there. Because one of the things about electronic monitoring is they don't really collect data on it. So it's difficult to find out information about what the impact is, how many people are on it, how many people are getting violated and sent back to prison. I estimate at the moment that there's about 250,000 electronic monitors out there. Since most people are on for less than a year, it probably means we have somewhere between 500,000 and 750,000 people a year being put on one of these monitors. But we need more statistics because we also need to show that, as I would suspect, that it's disproportionately black and brown folks that are being put on, almost universally poor people that are being put on this monitor. But we need them to come and tell their stories because we don't have written down rules and regulations, we don't have data. The official documents are not going to tell the story.
So excuse me for cutting you off, but is that federal, state, and local?
It's federal, state, and local. The feds don't use it that much. States use it a lot for people on parole or on supervised release. And then more and more at the local level, we're seeing as we have pressure to end cash bail and decarcerate, people are being let out of jail, but then being put on a monitor. And in some cases, if they're waiting a long time for their case, they end up paying more for those monitoring fees than they would have paid for their bail. So that's but it's happening, across the board. And also immigrants are being put on monitors more and more the use of monitors on immigrants has tripled in the last 2 years.
Oh wow, wow.
So, go ahead.
Go ahead. Go, no,
No, I just want to say about
Yeah,
how
give
we
it to me.
how we oppose it. Okay, so once we get these stories, we got to take it to the legislature. We got to take it to the county authorities, and we got to get them to pass legislation that's going to, I think, eliminate the use of these things. Or if they're going to be used, we got to have some guarantees of respecting the rights of people. When you're in prison, you have rights and entitlements. They're limited. They're difficult to enforce, but you have so many hours a week of law library, so many hours a week of recreation, so many hours a week of visiting. When you're on a monitor, they tend to give you a sheet of paper with an 800 number on it saying, you got any problems, call this number, otherwise don't leave your house without permission.
Right.
So there's no guarantee you can go to work, there's no guarantee you can go to your partner's childbirth, there's no guarantee of any of those things. You have to ask each and every time, and it depends on your parole agent. So if we're stuck with the monitor, first of all, we want no fees. No one should be paid, having to pay money to be captive in their own house. Secondly, we want to guarantee that people have a minimum amount of movement. In Illinois, the recommendation now is that people get a minimum of 12 hours a day of movement if they're on mandatory supervised release after they've finished a prison term. We think that's at least a step in the right direction. If we can't get rid of these things, people need to be free to carry on with their lives while they're on this monitor. So the legislation and policy is an area where we have to move, and there's not much in place at the moment. The other thing is compelling authorities to keep data on this. We want to know how much money are you spending on this, how many people are on it. We want a racial breakdown of who's on it. We want to know how many people are getting sent back to prison or jail for violating the rules of electronic monitoring. Most places are not collecting that data. We've tried, we've put in requests for information. They just say, oh, we don't keep that data.
So well, you know, they keep the data because they got to track the money. So you follow the dollar, you get the data. But this is more or less like apartheid, if you really think about it, because you in this oppressed situation, and then you're under arrest in your own home. That's like apartheid. You have a curfew where you can't move around, you can't do anything. So if we outlawed it in other countries, why is it that we hadn't outlawed it here in the United States?
Well, apartheid is outlawed, but they're doing electronic monitoring in South Africa.
Changing the name.
Taking it from the U.S., the mass incarceration model. But I mean, I lived in South Africa for 11 years during the transition from apartheid. So in my memory is black people having to carry passports, and the cops are posting up on the corner, stopping them, asking them for their passport, and if they don't have a permit to be in that part of town, they go to jail. Well, why can't they do that here with a GPS and put movement permits into your GPS? They already have exclusion zones for people with so-called gang histories, people that have sex offense convictions. They're banned electronically from going to certain parts of the town. Well, why don't they take it one step further and keep certain people in certain parts of the town and keep them out of others? We already see gentrification doing this informally with policing and regulations, but it would be much easier to do with technology. I call it e-gentrification. You use electronic monitoring to keep people where they're supposed to be and keep the privilege in those gentrified areas and keep poor people of color that they feel threatened by